Alright, when you finish, when that Windows displays, please make sure you do not keep it on debug. Debug is when you get all the possible explanations the core has to offer about basically everything. That is for development purposes if your server crashes often or whatnot. This one, don't really think you need it. This one is released. This is the fastest mode you can have, but if your server crashes, it doesn't display all the information that your server can display. It runs on efficiency. It works fast, but it doesn't display all the info in case you're in trouble. So when you run it on this one and you need additional info, you can run debug and then you will get all the information. What I usually do is release with debug information. It's fast and it displays all the critical information you need. So just this is lots of fun. Now we will go to build and build a solution. But before we do that, I want to make sure you guys understand one thing. As you can see, this one has static, and if we tick down, it has non-static, dynamic, and many minimal things. That itself is not really relevant, but when you do custom servers and when you work with fast and you want to make sure that you can do things without restoring the server every single time, you can use something called hot swapping, which is basically where you save the script, the CPP file. CPP stands for C++. When you save it, it will automatically compile it within the world server itself. Now that is possible if you do it on dynamic. This works on custom. This is not a perfected system. This is why they usually do default. Default is static, and I do not really recommend using it if you're not a developer by yourself, because this can cause a few server crashes. It will work after the crash, it will work, but it will not really be beneficial to you because the risk of crashing the server can be dramatically increased in case you update frequently. So I kept it on default on purpose, but please do keep in mind that instead of closing the server and doing this process again and again and again, you can simply save a single file and the server will do its thing, assuming it is successful. So we will be going to build and build solution. Now this takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. In the meanwhile, what we can do is install the database that we need. Now in order to do that, we do need to create a new session. New session goes like this. We need a host. Host is where we keep all the information at. By default, it's 127.0.0.1. That is the local server. You can type here local server as well, and it will work. If you remember, we said our username is root and our password is password when we installed MySQL community. So we will set the password called password. Now after that is done, we hit save and it will save it. Obviously we can rename it. That is actually recommended as well. We will call it local serverlands. In here, it doesn't really matter if it's with spaces, without spaces. This is only the interface. It's not the server itself that it is case sensitive and very space aggressive. So we hit open and we have everything we need. Now I say everything we need, but that is only the default layout, so we know this one can work. Now I want to show you one thing. The server, as you can see, is under a lot of stress. Hit more details. But why does it really connect? That is very simple. We go to services and we go to MySQL. MySQL 5.7. If you remember, I said it doesn't really matter how it's called, but because we do run only one single MySQL server. But this basically means that this is MySQL 5.7. Now, in order to stop it, we can right click and stop. And then, since we're in the database already, we can safely log out by pressing X. And we go to Haiti SQL once again. Yeah, it takes a bit of time because the machine is under a lot of stress. This one, it logged in just fine previously. When we hit open, it will not work. Can't connect to MySQL server. This issue can appear on many occasions if you want to let someone else access your database, but you do not have the port forwarded. The default port is 3306. Or your server just has it closed. This is why it's important to set it up as boot by default whenever your server is being launched. We have this option enabled by default. That basically means that when I do here and I restart the computer, when it opens, the second it opens and it has access to itself, like the additional non-Windows components, it will start MySQL server. So anyone can access your MySQL server whenever your server is even slightly responsive. Do keep that in mind. So after that is open now, we can press open and it will let us in. We do not need all of those, but I will keep them anyways, just because why not? Right click. When you target local server, you can create a new database. If I do it on this one, when I have this being selected, I can right click and it will not let me create a new database. It will let me create a new table and many other options. We need 3 databases. These databases called Authentication, in short Auth, Characters, and World. We will start by creating Auth. And press OK. Now we go to Auth and we go to Query. From there, we go to the server itself. If you remember, I showed you the core folder and it had several SQL things. I showed you updates, but it has base, it has create. Okay, now this create is what we need basically. Sorry, base is what we need. Base is what we need. We go to, oh my god, dude. Go to base and we have auth database right there, and we can execute it. Now, if you're familiar with SQL, you can pretty much see what it does. Yeah, don't really mind about that. You can pretty much see what it does. It basically creates a few database tables, which is how we organize information in SQL. And yeah, that's pretty much all it does. We can go table by table, but that will be quite a bit of time. I just make this a bit larger. We can do that, but as you might imagine, it can take quite a bit of time. This is the short database. It doesn't really weight all that much, and it doesn't have too much information. Again, go to local serverless or however you called it, and we will create a new database. This new database will be called characters. Characters. Now we will need to drag characters into this new query thing. So we need to target characters now because we have the database. If we do not do that, like if we just keep it like that, we can execute it. Question is, will it work? That depends on the structure itself. Since we do not have a select statement, select like that, it will not know where to insert all this data. Drop table basically means delete everything if exists, and just delete everything it has. Then you will create a new table by this. These are the properties that you need, but it doesn't know where to insert it at too. So we just create this database and we simply execute it. Now, an important button to know and be familiarized with is this one. Stop on error batch mode. This one, triangle. We can click on it, and whenever it encounters any sort of issue, it usually stops and shows the error, and until we interact with it, it will just stop the process and just go danger, danger, and it will not really move on. What this one does when we disable it, when you like click it once, it will make it skip any sort of error, and it will continue to run smoothly. So that's a very useful tool when we create a world database installation. So this WinRAR application has a world in it. So what we need to do, what I think is best, is if we move okay, that is new. If we move this one in here, yeah, warnings, that doesn't really matter all that much. We will refresh it just to see what we have. As you can see, a lot more information. That is the second largest database. Now, don't be scared of all this information. You will not pretty much ever interact with it. The server knows its thing, it knows what to do, and it does it very well. You don't really need to be concerned about it. Now, the last one we have is this one. We go to serverlens, local serverlens, create a new database. And this is the bad boy everyone are getting trouble with. It's called world. Now, we target it and we just click this error. It will not display anything because it's very empty. If we click on the previous error, this one and this one, it will show many things, but world, it just created it and it doesn't have any information, so we simply do not see anything. We close it. No, we do not want to save anything. Now please notice the size difference these two have. Okay, and please notice this one, it's huge. Okay, the difference is huge. HeyDSQL cannot interact with so much information, all within the editor itself. So what we do is make sure this knows where to insert it at. This is why we selected world database and the error down there. So we will show this one where to be executed. So when we double click it, we will get an interface that basically asks us if we want to load 264 megabyte into the editor, or if we want to skip and save some time and just execute it into wherever. Now this wherever is where we edited the world database and we directed it into the database we just created. So this is why it's very useful. Yes, we want to use AzerothSQL. This is pretty much the only time you will ever need to use this mechanic. Obviously, you can drag and drop and you can insert, and as we did with these two, but the whole point is not to not to ruin your editor or whatever. Run it. And this is why it's important that we ticked the triangle off, because the triangle could do a lot of issues. If it encountered any sort of error, it could in fact cause this about 1 minute left. It will cancel everything it had so far. It will stop right there and it will not progress further, instead of just displaying the amount of errors we had at the end. Now, please notice the errors are being overridden later through the updates folder that we have right there. The updates folder. So any error you might notice is probably intentional. TrinityCore does a lot of testing with what they release. So everything you see has been tested and it works as intended whenever it is being displayed over there. So if you notice any sort of error, you can always create a new issue and you can report the developers. The developers are listed in the contributors listing. They have a, oh my god, what the hell is this? They have a member tag on their GitHub, and yeah, it's a lot of it's very simple to recognize them. As you can see, they have many tags, so you can really get familiar with what they have and what they do not really have. 19,000 closed. Yeah, it's a very active project. You don't really need to worry about anything. Let's hope this one will work as intended, and this one will finish not too far after this one. 14 hours remain. Yeah, gotta love Windows when it just gives you an random generated number here. Hey guys, I paused the video and I opened it just now and it finished. We have 24 successful projects. We have 0 failed, which is the most important part. Up to date and skipped is irrelevant. MySQL has finished as well, and we can refresh it and we can see that this is indeed the heaviest project out of all of them. Now we will go to Serverlands just to give you a measurement of how much does it weigh. 317 gigs. Bin release with debug information. It's this one. If you would have made release, it was release, and debug, it will be debug. You can have multiple of the projects at the same time. I just really recommend using this one. Alright, a few things. As you can see, we have the executables right there. These are the files we will need to execute in order to have the server functioning. Server functioning meaning that the people can log in and interact with our server. This is the whole login process. And when they're in game, everything content related that is not entirely username password is being generated by this one. This is obviously, well, this is the heaviest of the two applications, this one handles the most of the heavy lifting. Now we have a few config files. Config files are basically where we save all the configurations of the servers of the server we want to have. It should be allserver.conf for authentication and worldserver.conf for world. The dist one is where we have the advantage, because we will need to remove it. People who did not modify through the control panel, please do so right now, and it will let you do your things as you need to. To edit, I usually use a software called Notepad++. It is extremely useful, and I highly recommend using it. Do not run it, don't need it. Now I do. Right click, edit with Notepad++. Now the thing you want to keep in mind is the port and the SQL data. SQL data is right there. Login database info. 127.0.0.1. The port is 3306. You can view all that in here. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, just all the information is very recent and very up to date, and still it is very much what we need. So the username, if you recall, we had it root, and the password was password. Now let's check it out within the SQL itself. Manage user authentication and privileges. We will go there and we can see that root has access only to localhost, and the password, if we ever want to modify the password, we can do it through this one. Limitations and SSL options, you can play with it, but it might mess your entire database up, so I recommend trying it on a new account, which we'll be testing right now. Server lens, it will be accessible from, we can type any specific IP we want. It might be 12.12.15.78. That means that only this very specific IP can access a username called serverlens with password 1 and 1. Now we can add several objects we want to give him access to. We want to give him access to account because we want to make sure he can select and insert new accounts. Now this one, serverlens account, will have access only to authentication, and he will be able to see only authentication account. When he sees it, he will not be able to do anything other than insert and view. Now let's see it in action. 127.0.0.1, and let's create a new session. Create a new one. Test. Yeah, this is the same. We will call it serverlens. Password is 1. Open. Yes. As you can see, this one is irrelevant. This is non-important thing. This is a lot of behind the scenes stuff. So we can try to create a new user and it will let us. But if we want to delete a user, yeah, there's a lot of technical difficulties right now, but still we can add a new user, and when we will want to remove it by clicking this one, it will not let us. So if you want to remove him, you can do it very simply by doing this. And now if we refresh this bad boy here, we do not have access to it because yeah, SQL error, and we do not have access to it anymore. Now, assuming you're stuck in this session, you can still do your things because the command was executed. So they can download your files and they can download your stuff, but that doesn't mean they can support it because your core is very unique. As you can see, many of the changes here are being done to the database. So it might not fit to your specific database structure. So best of luck if they don't know what they're doing. Let's go back to this one. Root and password, we will not do server lands in one because it will create a lot of errors to us. We save it and we go back to this one, world server, and we edit it. Now, as you can remember, I did say that the port is important here. Server port is 8085. Now we do need to keep that in mind because this one is root and this one is password. By the way, how I do that, I simply press tab and I can select many fields, many specific fields. Like, it doesn't really do well if you want to alter just let's say these are credentials. I cannot really modify all of them, but if they're synchronized and are at the same order, like in here, that's extremely useful. Now just imagine if you have a lot of insert commands and you can just modify all the IDs like that. That is very simple. So an extremely useful tool. Gonna save it, and now we need a few additional things. We need a to view the errors right now. Yeah, libmysql.dll. We get that from, let's open a new window. Go to this PC, go to Windows. Since we installed the MySQL server on 64-bit, this is 86-bit is basically 32 bits. This is all the non-64 applications we install. But since, if you recall, we installed everything on 64-bit, we will need to go to program files, and we go to MySQL this, and we have lib. This one we just copy and we paste. Now it should generate a new issue. Just let it do its thing. That's, like I said, it automatically updates the database and it generates a new issue, an error. As you can see, we have 2 log files that did not exist previously, and that is good. That means we're making progress. This one has been generated. This is fine. This is very successful and it will keep on running. We have the revision right there. We have the date. We have all the data that we will basically need in case we're encountering any sort of issue. Now, to view the errors that we had on world server, we have this log file called server.log. Gonna be running it. Yeah, we have a few missing files. These missing files are vmaps. Right now it detects vmaps that is missing. And this is important to know that we need 4 new folders called maps, vmaps, dbc, and mmaps. We cannot boot the server without them, so I will be showing you how to get them. As you can see, we have a map extractor, we have mmaps, vmaps, and vmaps assembler and extractor. You need to copy these into your World of Warcraft client, and you need to execute all of them, not together, one by one. It will take a bit of time, and it can be about the same length as compiling this for the first time. So on this machine, it's not the most advanced machine, so it will take some time. So I will be showing you how to get it done, but I will skip the entire process of when it is being generated. So see you on the next part.